celebrating Columbus, and it's from this loser, Michael Knowles. So, let's take a look.
He ventured where no other man of his age dared to go.
Into another man. I'm sorry.
Things no other man of his age had ever seen. He discovered a new world.
Aside from all the other men, you know, who already lived in the Americas, and aside from all the other explorers who went there before him, and at the same time.
For centuries, he was universally admired as a hero.
Not really. That's only been a thing in it's only been a thing in certain American education. Only until relatively recently, with the invention of the internet, have people begin to realize, oh wow, there's actually a lot more about Columbus that they haven't told us.
Now, he's widely considered to be a despoiler of paradise, an enslaver, and a genocidal maniac.
Yes, all of this is true.
I'm talking, of course, about Christopher Columbus.
We know.
So which is true? Is he a hero or a villain?
It's a villain. Like, there's no other way around it. Yeah, now we're talking. He was a villain.
The truth is complicated, as the truth often is.
I don't trust Michael Knowles to like, tell me anything honestly. This is the face of a liar. Because he is a liar.
Especially when you have to go back 500 years to find him. But let's try to get as close as we can. Columbus was
I have a suspicion we're not gonna get as close as we can with Michael Knowles, but that's okay. That's what I'm here for.
Born in 1451 in the port city of Genoa, Italy.
Oh,
at a time when birth often
we're just doing the basic history? Okay.
Determined destiny. His origins were entirely unremarkable. His father was a middle-class wool weaver who expected his son to follow the same path.
Middle-class wool weaver in the 1400s? Okay.
But Columbus had different plans. The age of discovery was dawning.
Kind of remarkable.
The future belonged to the bold, and the bold went to sea.
As Themistocles once said, he who commands the sea has command of everything. Not that I'd expect Michael Knowles to...
By the time he turned 30, Columbus had sailed to Iceland, Ireland, and Africa.
That's not really that impressive for, like, merchants and traders at the time.
Many voyages, he became obsessed with the idea that there was a westward sea route from Europe to India. But there were no maps to consult. Only wild rumors of sea monsters and endless ocean.
I just want to appreciate this image for a moment. This is beautiful. I love it. We pretty much knew the world was round even back then. The only difference was, like... The Atlantic Ocean is fucking huge. The Pacific is even bigger. It's a long way to fucking go.
He put together the 15th century version of a PowerPoint presentation for the King of Portugal, then the world's leading sea power.
Oh my god, that's like, hey kids, how you doing, fellow kids?
But the king, heeding the advice of his experts, turned him down.
Yeah,
it simply couldn't be done, the experts told the king. It was pure speculation, and an expensive one at that, so Columbus took his plans to Spain. But King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella weren't interested either, at least not at first. Columbus persevered. After 8 years, they finally relented. They gave the explorer 3 small ships. There was a time when every school kid knew their names.
Did he request it at first, or did he just, like, get to know them for like 8 years and then he requested it? I think that's what he did. He's like, hey, you know, things aren't really working out for me here in Europe. I'd like to, like, leave. Could you give me a bunch of money to do this?
The Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, and the year in which Columbus set sail, 1492.
Okay.
Except for a compass and the stars, Columbus had virtually no navigation tools at his disposal.
That's not true. They had more than just compass back then. They also had maps, even limited as they were. There are islands in the Atlantic that they knew about even back then. There's this thing called a sextant. It looks really complicated, and it is, but if you know what you're doing and you have, like, the map and the guide to go with it, it's really not so bad. Basically, using one of these, you can help track your position on the Earth. The sextant also wasn't invented until around the 1700s, after Columbus. Whoops, I got that one wrong. Maybe Michael Knowles doesn't know about those.
He was, to mix metaphors, flying blind. He was heading west.
Sure.
That's about all he knew.
Sure.
Once the ships left the Canary Islands, they were on their own.
The way he talks also seems like he aggressively knows he's lying to me.
His crews stayed loyal for the first week, but by the 3rd week, they had lost their nerve. Columbus, however, never lost his. By sheer force of will, he kept his men in line.
What?
Finally.
That's a weird fan fiction he wrote there. By sheer force of will, he kept his men in line by blasting their butts.
Finally, After 10 long weeks at sea, on the night of October 11th, Columbus spotted land. He called it San Salvador. Today, we know it as the Bahamas.
He also lived his entire life thinking he landed in East Asia. Like, up until his deathbed, he still thought he landed in East Asia. Hey, why didn't you mention that? I think he should have mentioned that. Maybe he'll mention it later. I don't remember.
Columbus and his men encountered the Taino tribe.
Oh, God.
The first encounter between Europe and the Americas went well. The Taino were curious and helpful. Columbus was emphatic that his crew treat them with kindness and respect.
Okay, let's wreck this. Columbus called the inhabitants of the lands that he visited Los Indios, Spanish for Indians, because he thought he landed in fucking Asia. He initially countered the Lucayan, Taino, and Arawak peoples. Noting their gold ear ornaments, Columbus took some of the Arawaks prisoner and insisted they guide him to the source of the gold. Columbus noted their primitive weapons and military tactics made the natives susceptible to easy conquest, writing, "These people are very simple in warlike matters. I could conquer the whole of them with 50 men and govern them as I pleased." He would do this, by the way. And the source of this is a book. Okay. Oh, use your free account? Wow. I love academia. Okay, well, we get the point, don't we?
Lest you think that Columbus stumbled on the Garden of Eden, the islands were also inhabited by the Caribs, a tribe of cannibals for whom, according to Pulitzer Prize-winning historian Samuel Eliot Morison, babies were a delicacy.
Also known as my people. I want to point something ridiculous out here. Look at these guys. Look at these three sitting around the baby fire. They're the exact same as
the Taino were
as these three. PragerU used the exact same art. Just subtle way of saying, oh, they all look the same. Those
according
fucking indigenous people.
To Pulitzer Prize-winning historian Samuel Eliot Morison, babies were a delicacy.
They really are, though. Like, have you tried them, Michael Knowles? I actually looked this up a while back. If I remember correctly, the Kalingo, also known as the Island Caribs or Simpi Caribs, are an indigenous people, Lesser Antilles in the Caribbean. Now, this is Michael Knowles' way of trying to he's trying to say, those natives that Columbus fucking genocided, it wasn't so bad. Some of them kind of had it coming. Because, Michael Knowles is like a fucking ghoul. But a funny thing about their cannibalism, according to the Spanish conquistadors, grain of salt, I suppose. According to the Spanish conquistadors, the Kalingo were cannibals who regularly ate and roasted human flesh. There is evidence as to the taking of human trophies and the ritual cannibalism of war captives among both Carib and other Amerindian groups such as the Arawak and the Tupinamba. Sorry. The Island Carib word Caribna meant person, although it became the origin of the English word cannibal. That's kind of interesting. That's kind of cool. Among the Caribs, it was commonly associated with rituals to the eating of war enemies. There is evidence supporting the taking of human trophies and the ritual cannibalism of war captives. The Caribs had a tradition of keeping bones of their ancestors in their houses. Missionaries described the practice as part of a belief that ancestral spirits would always look after the bones and protect their descendants. The Caribs have been described as vicious and violent people in the history of people who battled other tribes. Rochefort, one of these missionaries, stated they did not practice cannibalism. So there's already conflicting reports on whether or not they were cannibals. Anyway, historian Will Revere, however, described this as most of the cannibalism related to war rituals. I know cannibalism seems abhorrent to most people today, but it seemed like a lot of the cannibalism that was actually done, if it was done, was I'm gonna eat my enemy to gain their strength, which is a little different than I'm just fucking eating babies. That seems kind of like Michael Knowles picked the most ridiculous claim and just went with that one instead of providing a more nuanced take on it. But what do I know? I'm just a cannibal myself.
Or in Morison's words, a toothsome morsel.
Yeah.
Like every place else on Earth, in every time in history, the local peoples were a mixed bag. Some good, some not so good.
That's why we use the same sprites for both of them. The exact same. They look exactly the same.
Upon his return to Spain,
So
word
weird
of the
to do
Italian
that.
explorer's successful voyage quickly spread throughout Europe.
Yeah, this Columbus guy says they got gold over there.
A new world had been discovered, and the old world would never be the same.
Would you say it was a brave new world? Michael Knowles? Okay.
Columbus was a man meant for the sea. On land, he was easily outmaneuvered and betrayed by professional politicians and bureaucrats.
Oh yeah, this is the best
It is
part.
on their dubious, self-serving accounts that modern attacks on Columbus's reputation are based.
Okay, so first off, he's right. Modern attacks on Columbus's reputation are based. However, this is so bizarre. This is him saying that all of this stuff about Columbus is just from fucking politicians. Like, holy shit, Michael Knowles. I know you're like, you look at the Nazis and you like aspire to be them, but like, come on. Yeah, have a little more tact.
In his own day, these attacks made the explorer's life a misery. Columbus was not blameless. He sold natives into slavery. But the explorer did not invent slavery.
Oh, that's the bar you want to go with? Hold on, let's find the other one. Oh yeah, Columbus was bad because, he sold some natives into slavery, but come on, we all did slavery. Okay, check this out. Some historians have criticized Columbus for initiating colonization and for abusing natives. The punishment for an indigenous person aged 14 and older failing to pay a hawk's bell of gold dust, about $400 in 2021 currency, every 3 months, was cutting off the hands of those without tokens, often leading them to bleed to death. So, if you didn't give Columbus fucking gold every 3 months, he'd chop off your hands. What the fuck? Michael Knowles is like, slavery, yeah, it was a thing, but who cares? It was a thing at the time. Chopping off people's hands was not a fucking thing at the time. What the fuck? Let's go.
Which was common around the world long before and long after Columbus's time.
Okay, sure, yeah, wow, you got it, dude.
As for the charge of genocide, there was no genocide.
Oh, he didn't invent chopping off people's hands. You're correct. Oh, this is a great still image. Oh my god. Oh my god, Michael Knowles.
As for the charge of genocide, there was no genocide.
Thank you.
There were atrocities, most occurring after Columbus was dead and gone. There was also widespread intermarriage between the Spaniards and the natives.
I also mentioned, okay, at the start of this sentence before I talked about the hands thing. On St. Croix, Columbus's friend, Michael de Cuno, I don't know. According to his own account, kept an indigenous woman he captured, whom Columbus gave to him, then brutally raped her. Okay, yeah. Oh, intermarriage was a thing. He didn't even, like, acknowledge the genocide claim very well. He just said there is no genocide, and let's move on. I'm just curious. If I type Columbus genocide, Columbus and his men round up Arawak men, women, and children. Oh, he basically, like, just completely sold all of the Arawak tribe into slavery. Yeah, that counts as genocide. The establishment of La Isabela and the discovery of gold deposits on the island, the Spanish settler population on Hispaniola started to grow substantially, while disease and conflict with the Spanish began to kill tens of thousands of Taino by every year. By 1504, the Spanish had overthrown the last of the Taino chiefdoms on Hispaniola and firmly established supreme authority of the Spanish colonists in the now subjugated Taino. Over the next decade, the Spanish colonists presided over a genocide of the remaining Taino on Hispaniola, who suffered enslavement, massacres, exposure to diseases. The population of Hispaniola at the point of the first European contact is between several hundred thousand to over 1 million people, but by 1514, it had dropped to a mere 35,000. Good job, Columbus. You started this. Most of the Arawak of the Antilles died out or intermarried after the Spanish conquest. Well, there we go. But there is no genocide. I'm Michael Knowles.
Which eventually led to the people we now call Hispanic or Latino.
Hispanic is for Spanish-speaking countries. I know. He doesn't. Do you think Michael Knowles know? No, Michael Knowles does not know. Oh, man. The populations he's describing is more than just... are descended from more than just the fucking islands Columbus landed on. It's like, what he's describing is also all of South America, which is not what Columbus landed on. But, I know, what is nuance?
It's unfair to focus only on Columbus's sins. It's also unfair to judge someone who lived 500 years ago by today's standards.
Okay, how about the standards of Columbus's times? As a colonial governor, Columbus was accused of his contemporaries of significant brutality and was soon removed from the post. Columbus's strained relationship with the Crown of Castile and its appointed colonial administrators in America led to his arrest and removal from Hispaniola in 1500, and later to protracted litigation over the benefits that he and his heirs claimed were owed to them by the crown. The court of Spain learned about what he was doing and the way he was treating the natives in Hispaniola, and they were like, well, that's pretty fucked up. And they charged someone with the military to come to arrest him and bring him back. And he did. He stood trial, and then he was pardoned by the King of Spain. That's what happened. All right, here we are from History.com. In May 1498, Columbus sailed across the Atlantic for the third time. He visited Trinidad and the South American mainland before returning to the ill-fated Hispaniola settlement, where the colonists had staged a bloody revolt against the Columbus brothers' mismanagement and brutality. Conditions were so bad that Spanish authorities had to send a new governor to take over. Meanwhile, the native Taino population, forced to search for gold and to work on plantations, was decimated. Christopher Columbus was arrested and returned to Spain in chains. 1502, cleared of the most serious charges but stripped of his noble titles, the aging Columbus persuaded the Spanish crown to pay for one last trip across the Atlantic. This time he made it all the way to Panama, just miles from the Pacific Ocean, where he had to abandon his ships after damage from storms and hostile natives. Empty-handed, he returned to Spain, died in 1506. Like a cock. Lost document reveals Columbus as a tyrant of the Caribbean. One man caught stealing corn had his nose and ears cut off, was placed in shackles, then auctioned off as a slave. A woman who dared to suggest Columbus was of lowly birth was punished by his brother Bartolome, who also traveled across the Caribbean. She was stripped naked and paraded around the colony on the back of a mule. Bartolome ordered her tongue be cut out. Columbus congratulated him for defending the family. When the other people at Daily Wire joke about Michael Knowles, like, being like a weirdo and you shouldn't be in the same room with him, and then he's like defending Columbus, I don't know. Maybe there's something to it. So yeah, how's that for judging someone by today's standards? That's judging him by standards back then. Hey, the natives fucking revolted too, so that's nice. So that goes to show they weren't happy about it either, you know, by standards 500 years ago. I recognize that Michael Knowles here, Michael Knowles, would probably just say, oh yeah, but all of that is fake news because of politicians. It's the liberal fucking politicians in the Spanish parliament that are besmirching the good name of Christopher Columbus.
His own assessment of his actions is much more revealing.
That's why we should listen to what Columbus himself said.
Let those who are fond of blaming and finding fault, while they sit safely at home, ask, why did you not do thus and so?
I don't know, man. I've never fucking chopped off someone's hands. I feel like that's a pretty low bar to meet. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know.
Well, there's a reason why Columbus has so long been celebrated. Why so many statues, schools, towns, cities, a national holiday, an Ivy League university, and even a country bear his name.
Yeah, because some people are fucking psychos, or some people don't know about what he did, because back then information doesn't spread like it does today.
It's this simple fact. When we celebrate Columbus, we celebrate the arrival of Western civilization to the Western Hemisphere.
There we go. Why couldn't you just, like, open with this, man? Don't lead us on this big fucking chase. He doesn't fucking care about Columbus. He cares about defending the concept in his mind of Western civilization. That's the answer. Why would I celebrate the arrival of Western civilization to the Western Hemisphere? The concept of Western civilization is a very loose one to begin with. It's one of these things that really just seems like it's made more exclusively just to exclude other people from other civilizations that are less important than ours. Yeah, what does Columbus Twitter say? Yo, Michael Knowles, did you read the tweets? There's always something.
And if you can't celebrate that, it says much more about your moral compass than about history's greatest explorer.
Oh my God, Mike. Oh my, Michael, you gotta stop fucking embarrassing yourself like this. Yeah, okay, first off, it says that my moral compass is, like, actually okay and not made out of some weird fantasy like yours is, Michael Knowles. Also, history's greatest explorer? What the fuck? Michael Knowles, you don't have to be such a fucking cuck about this. Not even during Christopher Columbus's time was he the greatest explorer. Arguably the greatest explorer of all time. Okay, arguably Marco Polo. He found a good path from the west to the east, and all the work he did in the court of Kublai Khan. I recognize that level of historical literacy is probably a lot more than Michael Knowles has. Even then, even if you wanted to argue about another explorer that fits the same vein as Christopher Columbus, you've got Leif Erikson, who was like the first European to document himself arriving in the Americas. And then you have Amerigo Vespucci. Arguably, he's much more important because all of the Americas bears his namesake, and he recognized he was on a new continent, or 2 new continents. Meanwhile, Christopher Columbus, as Michael Knowles put, the world's greatest explorer, fucking thought he landed in the Indies. He thought he landed in East Asia up until the day of his death. What kind of world's greatest explorer is that? That's sad.
I'm Michael Knowles, host of The Michael Knowles Show for Prager University.
Sad, cringe.
This video.
Boo! Get him off of my screen. Get out of here, Michael. Thank you to the October patron backers: Benjamin Kessler, Dios, Ian Diaby, Here Comes the Rat, James Paul, Jari Palamo, Joe Nuts, Lionel, Mellow Cheddar, Suzanne Hendrickson, and Xylorp.